5:01. Call the February 9th meeting of the Tilton Northfield Fire District Building Committee to order. President is Commissioner Silly, myself, Kevin Cate, Tim Sattler, and Chief Mike Silly. And on the phone is Kevin Walker. Any old business that we need to take care of other than minutes? Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting?
Yes. Yeah, there was one name error in there. Just referring to me as somebody else.
Where was that?
Starting forward.
Oh,
Contractor and design build companies, second page, like second major item. It says Scott said Alan mentioned a building company that he experienced with before under the underlying contractor / design build companies. It says Scott asked Alan. That's supposed to be me. The guy asked Alan.
we don't have a Scott on the committee.
Right. That might also include in that. Other than that, it was my thing.
All right, I will ask Beth to make that change.
I move that we accept the minutes as printed with that correction.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Kevin,
Yes, Kevin?
I think because we have a member who is not physically present, any votes taken, I think we need to be a roll call type vote.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Kevin. So, Commissioner Silly?
John Silly, yes.
Kevin Cate, yes.
Tim Sadler, yes.
Kevin?
Kevin Waldron, yes.
That's right. Then, motion passes. All right, everybody had a chance to review the letter from Alan Clark at REI Services. We'll open up the floor for thoughts and discussion regarding that letter.
We discussed it last night at the commissioners' meeting. I think all the commissioners were somewhat disappointed that he withdrew. Commissioners asked me to contact Alan Clark and see if he had any references he could give us for another company similar to his going forward to get us through the process. And so I contacted him by email today. I haven't heard back from him yet, though. It was late this afternoon. I had numerous meetings in the morning, so I didn't get till this afternoon. So I expect to hear from him this week. If I don't, I'll give him a call. He's doing something.
John,
Very disappointed with that step back. I think part of the shock value was is you can't build anything for $4 million. I think that's really where concerns are. Is that he's saying that whatever we build is going to be a lot more than that.
well, I don't think we can deny his level of experience, but
Absolutely.
the feeling that I got from listening to his presentation here and from watching the video of his presentation to the commissioners meeting when you guys had decided to contract with him was that it's my way or the highway. And it didn't appear as though there was any willingness to look at something less than what he believed district need. I did find it rather disturbing that he referenced a number of times in his letter,
You have the second one there?
yes, that this project was not, it was not feasible to service the needs of the district for the next 25 years. In my mind, and as we had discussed in our prior committee, that the 2019 building committee, this was not a be-all, end-all for the next 25 years. We all agreed that we need a new station. That committee made a recommendation to the commissioners, and the commissioners accepted it, that building a headquarters station on Park Street was the best solution to our current needs, not our needs for the next 25 years. And I certainly would be willing to support, in the future, a substation somewhere else. I believe that is needed. I think it's needed now, but I don't think that it's something that we can get the taxpayers to endorse. And his focus on that, because he mentions it on the first paragraph, on the second page. I also cannot accept as a goal the design and construction of a career-level fire station for $4 million or less that will meet the needs of the district for the next 25 years. It won't meet the district for the next 25 years, and that's not what we're asking. Ultimately, we'll be asking the voters to do. And he mentions it in paragraph C on the first page, the expectation that a single station at the Park Street location can serve the expected growth within the district over the next 20 years is not viable. So in some ways, I'm not disappointed that someone who, in my opinion, appears to be off the mark is not going to be participating with us.
I think he points out some concerns that I think some of the people in the committee who aren't here have, and some concerns I have. One being that we have a voter bloc that's hasn't been easily convinced that there's a viable solution. And we can talk about locations, and we can talk about cost, and those two seem to be the big sticking points we've had with the last number of projects. So, if we weren't going to spend the money, then this was going to be a much less expensive solution, then maybe the taxpayers would consider it. But then all of a sudden we're talking $3 million, and he came up with $4 million. I don't know where that came from. And obviously construction expenses are high, even if, for me, I'm not building anything, so I don't know, but generally speaking. So I think we still have the cost issue. The taxpayer is going to be concerned over the total cost. We're still going to be fighting that issue. The location issue, all right, could we resolve that if we had two stations, this one and another one down the road? And if we're going to sell that to the public, then do we have to present that to the public? The station, and how many years down the road? And how much is that going to cost? Because I'm worried about if we get this built, and then 5 years down the road, or 10 years down the road, or how many years it is down the road when we ask the public for a substation, and they go, well, we just spent all that money, we're going to go through this whole process again for another several cycles, and another decade will pass. So I think he brings up a valid point there, is how are we going to sell this at the cost? How are you going to sell it at the location without providing for those exit 20 Tilton folks who are, you move farther away from X percent of the calls. So I think, the committee is already forced to deal with those types of issues, no matter what we bring forward. And then, can we do it for $3 million? Well, I guess I walked into the room hoping that we were going to do it for less than that, because we weren't going to build a great big fire station. And Alan's already got it up to $4 million. And then, I'm also concerned about where's the membership of this committee? how credible are you gonna look presenting at a district meeting? And you said, who's on your committee? And this is all we have showing up to meetings. So I'm concerned about that. You know, where's the community support for the committee? And then, you know, in that first meeting where we were talking, the firefighters aren't excited about the solution, and, you know, we enthusiastically said, well, then that's the goal, is to convert the firefighters to a solution that makes sense and they would support. And I question how difficult that's gonna be. And so I think he brings up a lot of those valid points here, that we're gonna have to overcome. We can say that, you know, all we want about where he's coming from, but those are, we're gonna get those same concerns from the taxpayer and have to be able to answer them. When the taxpayers didn't vote for the $4.5 million project last time, are they gonna vote for a $4 million project this time? That's maybe half of a long-term solution, or a percentage of some longer-term two-station solution. That the firemen right now don't seem to be in favor of a two-station solution. So I think we have a lot of obstacles in our way, and I think he just happens to point them out from his level of expertise. And I think I come to the meeting, you know, hoping to get to the point where, you know, this all makes sense, and with some of those same concerns, and he's the professional that I'm not, and he can see those same concerns that I have, and I'm sure others do. So how do we overcome all that? So I don't think we can just push it under the carpet that, you know, he's coming from somewhere different and doesn't want to work with us. I think he has some valid points that we're gonna all have to overcome. So I don't want to go down through this whole process over the next year, and it ends up being a $4+ million project that gets voted down again. You know, so how do you sway those people in Tilton? How do you sway the people who don't want to spend that much money?
I question, how does anybody know that the Tilton people are the ones who would vote against a fire station in Norfolk? Because I guess you could say anecdotally at the annual meeting, well, he lives in Tilton, he lives in Tilton, he lives in Tilton. They voted no, he voted no. But we don't know.
Well, but it came up at the Tilton School property when people got up and said, people from Northfield got up and said, you're moving the station from Center Street out onto Main Street. You're moving it farther away from me. And that was, they weren't going to be in favor of it unless it was a two-station solution. So,
And we were still keeping Oxford. We weren't getting rid of Oxford.
right.
Still keeping it.
So you're going to have all those people up at exit 20 and, you know, the Tilton side saying, all right, you're moving the station 0.8 of a mile away from me now.
But exit 20 is not the voters. Exit 20 is businesses.
But they're a high consumer of the services.
Right.
So that is the value, that the factor that you have to put in there is, where are the services being used the most also?
But those businesses are not going to be represented at the annual meeting.
Right, but like the gentleman who has a heart attack at Market Basket, moving the station farther away from Market Basket doesn't help me. Whether it's, you know, you're moving it farther away from my home and farther away from the places that I, you know, shop at and visit.
And I think it's an educational obstacle in that case. In reality, and I'd love it if we could do an actual test. Put 2 firefighters at Park Street, put 2 firefighters at Center Street, and ring the bell and see who gets to Market Basket first. And I guarantee you, in my mind, they'll get there at the same time if Park Street doesn't get there early.
And that may be the reality, it may not.
Because chief, during the day, especially now, when the streets are narrower because of the snowbanks, an engine coming out of Center Street, if there's nobody parked in the way, in the municipal parking lot, has to maneuver down that narrow alley and then make a turn onto Main Street. And if there are cars parked on both sides of the road in all the legal spots and the streets narrow because of the snowbanks, they're going to have to make a turn, back up, make a turn, and then continue on.
I've been pulling out of there for 8 years, and yeah, it's not the easiest place to get out of. I'll be the first one to admit that. In fact, it's a humongous pain, especially when cars are parked on the left-hand side.
And they
But-
gotta get down the stairs from upstairs,
Yeah.
out into the equipment bay.
So, but we do have emergency signaling sirens, and they do clear the way for us. It's just, we have to be very careful exiting that area. I can't, in the 8 years I've been here, I can't remember a time where we weren't able to get onto the road in a timely fashion once we reached the intersection. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, I just can't remember that it hasn't happened. And coming from Park Street, I know driving in an emergency manner safely, which you can't really go too fast on Park Street either. 35 is about as fast as I go on Park Street, even with the lights and siren on. It takes about 2 minutes to get from here to the Center Street area at the corner of Park and Main Street. So I'm going to say in most cases, the folks from Center Street, given that you ring the bell at the same time in both locations, are probably still going to get to Market Basket about 2 minutes quicker.
As I say, I wish we could do it, because getting from the upstairs dorm area down to the apparatus bay is a huge difference between the guy sitting in the office at Park Street and walking through a door to get out into the apparatus.
Sure, it depends upon what the layout, but if you're just taking the fire station as it is right now, where the guys are actually, if they're at Park Street, they're in the apparatus bay, because there is no place else. If you built it out to have, administrative space or, a living space, and you'd certainly have additional turnout time from what it is now. And it would probably be, if it's all on one floor, it certainly would be quicker than going down the stairs. That's just a given for sure.
And then Park Street is right there on the street. They don't have to move around through a narrow alley and around parked cars.
But given everything, and I showed the commission's PowerPoints yesterday. I made some adjustments and still working on the mapping. I'll probably get it, but I'm not going to have it for a while because he's working on other projects. 2/3 of the calls that we have are in Tilton. And then there's a certain aspect of Northfield that we access quicker from Center Street than from Park Street. Go out Shaker Road area, Route 140 area, those are actually accessed quicker. Even this town hall, it might be a tie coming to this town hall from Park Street or Center Street. So if the Park Street location is the only location for the fire department, we're going to increase our overall average response time to 2/3 of our calls by about 2 minutes. A little bit more, a little bit less, depending upon where they are. Counter to that, about 1/3 of the calls will probably have a shorter response time because we're coming from Park Street rather than Center Street. So for the majority of those calls, and literally all of Tilton, you're going to increase the response time. So that's a hard thing for me as a fire chief to overcome, because as we all know, minutes and seconds saves lives. It's brain cells and tot cells. Those are my concerns. Other concerns that I have, 2 stations, splitting up your personnel is not, you end up with 2 and 2, as we are manned right now, you end up with 2 and 2. It's not as efficient as if you have 4 together. It's more, it's harder to manage your resources and your crew stuff. I certainly prefer a 1-station solution, kind of like where the Tilton School was. I thought that was really a good solution. Unfortunately, I think the downfall to that ultimately was that it was gonna cost $1 million. $1 million of that bill was in just moving dirt around to make it suitable to build a fire station. I think that's the thing that I kind of surmised that from hearing people talk, that was kind of downfall to that project. But I think one station centrally located in that area on Route 3 would probably best serve the fire district currently for the short term. But long term, if you're thinking long term, I think all the development that we're going to have, I think it will be on Route 3 from exit 20 going towards Moose Long Bridge, Mosquito Bridge. There's already people buying up the land there. The Anchorage has a huge development going in there. We actually have a training burn in there on Saturday morning to burn down one of the buildings in the barn that's in the back that you can't see. You might, the folks in Belmont will get to see it pretty good, but the folks in Tilton will not, because the way it's located, it's right on the water. But, talking to the folks that are developing those areas, they're buying up the land because they want to develop it, and that's where there'll be a higher density, mixed residential and businesses right off of Route 3, going towards Mosquito Bridge, and so that's going to be, and that's already our second area of response, percentage-wise. It's the second largest in that constituency.
Seems like people can't drive around Mosquito Bridge on the weekend to hit something.
Well, I've been to some doozies there.
What, one of the issues that you brought up, Tim, is the firefighters not necessarily vacuuming the thought of the single station. And I remember Derek addressing that at our first meeting. His concern was, is it going to be a decision between personnel, because if this gets to voters, it's going to be about the same time that the decision is going to have to be made as to whether we keep the additional firefighters after the safer agreement expires. And his thought process was, we can stay in Center Street, but we have to have these firefighters. And my instinct is, we can't stay in Center Street. I mean, when is it going to get to the point where the insurance company or somebody says, this building is condemned, you can't stay, you can't operate out of here?
So the ultimate building authority in the state of New Hampshire is the state fire marshal. He's the head building official. They've inspected the property, and ultimately we've actually remedied all their concerns of the building. The other folks, Climax, which is our, if you will, our insurance company, they've inspected the property as well. And their major concern really is the ADA accessibility and the liability that if somebody wanted to go upstairs and we don't have the ADA facilities to get them upstairs. I mean, they can't even get to the front door if they're really that bad. But nobody has sued us. So, yet. And I don't know if people ever just really think about it, but if we were sued, we would lose. Similar to like the town of Tilton was sued over the sidewalks. They lost that thing, and now they're making sure that they clear the sidewalks and make sure that the sidewalks up and down Main Street are cleared in a timely fashion and in a professional fashion. It's just the way the ADA thing works. You have to accommodate them when they ask for those accommodations. Fortunately for us, we haven't. Nobody's pushed that button on us right now. Yeah,
It's better to be proactive than reactive.
absolutely.
It's a lot cheaper.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of issues. The one station, down the road, 2 stations is probably going to be the answer to this fire district. I personally see Parksby as one of those stations. Where's that other station going to go? And maybe we'll find out down the road what is available to us. And I'm hopeful that there will be other places that are available to us that way that are going to be acceptable to the folks on both sides of the river. But I think it's gonna be a little bit before we can get there. It's gonna be, this is a process, and in fact, as much as, this building committee has talked about, you know, maybe the design process, build process, and all that stuff, never actually sat down as a committee to say, this is exactly what we need space-wise. These are the, you know, the things that we need in whatever we're gonna do, wherever it is. We haven't really done that.
Actually, we
Other
did.
committees have.
Tim did it, and we all looked at it. We used, it was at the early meetings that you weren't able to attend, and we came up with a back of the napkin drawing based upon the space requirements that you had laid out in a prior committee using the Park Street site. And you certainly needed a lot more thought and attention to the detail. But we basically came up with 12 or 14, not even 14,000 square foot building with apparatus space on either side and admin
Sort of
and
have
bunk space in the middle.
sort of a rough estimate of how many rooms you needed and how much square foot each room would be. What we didn't have a good handle on is what you needed for hallways and mechanicals.
That's where not actually, the best way to go about is to try to determine what you need for space, function areas, and give all that stuff to an architect, and they figure out how it's laid out. And, you know, as much as I've built houses and things like that, and I've been involved in a number of fire station projects, as much as I think I know about building fire stations, because I've done it, I'm not as good as somebody whose professional career is to design space needs and flow patterns and things like that. Where an architect would probably serve that purpose better, given parameters of what we're looking for. We need, you know, 2 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, a kitchen, you know, or, you know, we need space for these many vehicles, things like that.
Kevin, you've been awfully quiet over there.
Well, you can make any argument you want for where you build relative to response time, whether you build 1 station, 2 or more. Fact is, some are going to gain, some are going to lose. And I think that, if I remember correctly, the geographic center of the district is, where is it? Bottom of WB Hill or something? Anybody have that recollection?
I'm not sure, Kevin.
I think they picked Park Street because it was as close as they could get to the center of the geographical center.
Okay, so that alone should carry some weight. The thing that we as we toss back and forth all these thoughts and whose opinion means what. I don't give 100% credence to what employees want, because employees come and go. The employees you have today will want something different than the ones we had 10 years ago, who will want something different than we have in the next 10 years. Employees are going to come and go no matter what. So to build for who we have right now doesn't make an ounce of sense to me. We need to provide a building that gets the job done. Nothing more, nothing less. And if we continue the unknowns and the I want this and the I want that, our grandchildren's grandchildren will be working out of the same building they're working out of today. So, I mean, I hate to, I don't even know, I don't know what to say. You gotta come up with something to put your nose to the grindstone, and along the way, the people that are pointing out to this, that, and that, and that, you're you're gonna get that whether you spend 10 cents or $10 million. The focus should be the here and the now. And when we get to a point where we can see our way clear to do something different, I'm sure whoever's in charge then will do that. If we're even thinking of 23, I'm telling you, it's going to be here sooner than any of us think. We've got to, and this letter, I have a hard time thinking that this letter is from the man that I met twice. It's like we were talking apples and oranges. He keeps referring to the addition to Park Street, and that we have to, it has this is wrong with it, that's wrong with it. Okay, we know what's wrong with it. But if we leave it alone, it's not part of the process. If you insist on bringing that into the process, you're going to cost yourself out of the project. It's going to be sweet enough for enough people to vote yes. And it's going to be sour grapes for some, no matter what. You build $8 million, it's going to be sour grapes for people like me. If you build $3 million, $2 million, $4 million, whatever it is, it's going to be sour grapes for others. There is no 100% buy-in on this. It is to get away from what we have now. And we can't predict what the future's going to be. These guys buying up all that land on Route 3, yeah, they probably got some money, but even people with a lot of money don't always get where they're going. You can't predict what's going to be down the road 25 years. In fact, I would hesitate right now to think I could tell you what's going to happen in 10 years. Because we don't know where this beautiful world we live in is going. So I'm just saying, don't lose our focus. Stay focused, stay on track, and do what we know we've been charged to do. I'll leave it right there.
Thank you, Kevin.
I guess in regards to development and Kevin's comment on that, I would just say, just look at what Route 3 was in Pennacook 10 years ago, what it is now, or Loudon Road in Concord, what that was 10 or 15 years ago, what it is now. I just think it's just moving this way. And it is moving this way because the population of both towns is going up. Houses are coming in, like, I don't even know how many houses not built this year, but it's around 20 anyways, and they're not little houses, they're big houses, big family houses. So I don't think we're going to stop, unless something really crazy happens, and I'm not discounting that it could happen, because it could. I think the development of this area is going to continue. I just think it's a fact that we should come to grips with it. I just sat in on the Tilton meeting today with the planning director. All the projects that are going on Route 3 down the road that she's got in her plate right now. It's quite a number of them.
Being involved in the construction industry for as long as I have, I know it may sound like a lot, but I'd be willing to bet you that half of those don't start within the next 3 to 5 years. Because developers will go to the planning board to see if to gauge their acceptance. And and they all have a varying degree of how much they're willing to go to battle to get their project approved. That multifamily project over in Northfield, they went to the town and said, okay, this is what we want to do. are you guys gonna let us, or are you gonna put, how many obstacles you're gonna put in our way? Well, if there's only 5 obstacles, we'll continue, but if there's 25, we'll back off, and we're not gonna do that. Developers buy land and sell land all the time, and they come in and they go, yep, this is what we're gonna build, and they gauge the temperature of the town, or the zoning board, or the planning board, and then they decide whether they're gonna continue or not. And until there's a permit and dirt is moved, nothing's written in stone. It's like that project, that former 55-plus project, was it on Cross Mill, off of Cross Mill, that sat empty for how long? And now they're getting started again. But you know, when it started, what, more than 5 years ago?
Well, that started, I think, around 2008, when the crash happened.
Yeah. Anything's possible. Interest rates are starting to come back up again. Building materials are still higher than they were 2 years ago. We don't know what. I agree that, you know, development is going to continue, especially in some of these places along Route 3 that are dilapidated old buildings. But as Kevin said, we can't predict the future. We need a new fire station. We can all agree on that. And we spent over a year, the last committee, looking at all the pros and cons of 1 station, 2 stations, Center Street, Park Street, somewhere else, and the decision was made by a large group of people, and the commissioners agreed that Park Street was the place to go for today. And I agree. You know, our charge hasn't changed. Our charge is still to come up with a plan to present to the voters to build a single station on Park Street. And unless the commissioners are going to change that, then that's what we need to continue doing. And yeah, there are going to be obstacles, Tim, and part of that is educating the public. And my recollection is that wasn't done with the prior building plans. There were no public meetings prior to showing up at the annual meeting and saying, okay, we want to build a new fire station, here's the plans, and it's going to cost, you know, $5 million or $7 million or $12 million. And we've said from the beginning that we need to get buy-in from the public, and that needs to start now. And it's one of the reasons why I put the post on 2 of the community pages today about our meeting tonight, that A, we're meeting, B, we need more committee members, and C, you know, come and be a part of, you know, planning for the future of the community. I had somebody who was interested, and he has a problem with one of the other committee members, and he said as long as that person is serving, I will not be on that board. And I respect that. But putting it out on the fire district's website or the town websites, nobody sees that. Because nobody goes there. Part of that education also has to be that Park Street is not a fire station. Park Street right today is a garage. And people think that it's a fire station. I can't tell you how many times people have said to me, how come there's never anybody at the fire station? Like, there's always somebody there. Well, I've been to Park Street a number of times and there's never anybody there. Yeah, because that's a garage. Oh, well, where's the fire station?
I think more, that may have been a year or 2 ago, but with all the stuff that's gone on, I think the public is more aware of that fact that that's not a manned station now.
The awareness is increasing, I would
Yeah.
agree, but that overcomes one of the obstacles about, oh, that's not a fire station? Oh, I mean, we would actually have one central station located on Park Street. And you can't minimize it, especially given the reaction to, and Kevin, you can block your ears if you want, cutting down the pine trees at the Pines. there's a lot of sentimentality in this town that's, if we were to not do some, you know, say, okay, we're gonna expand Park Street, people are like, hooray! And we love that little station there. It makes a difference. And I don't think anybody would be disheartened to hear that Center Street was no longer going to be used as a fire station. But, and Kevin, you made another point about building to what the employees wanted, and that wasn't my understanding of what Derek's concern was. Derek's concern was, is it one or the other? Are the voters going to only approve additional staff or a new fire station? And his thought was that that's what they would do, that it would be one or the other, not both.
Right.
And I don't...
Right.
And,
That's exactly what he said.
right. And we don't know. We don't know if they're going to approve additional staff after the SAFER grant runs out. But it's up to the chief and the commissioners who are serving at the time to present the facts and say, okay, this is why we need additional staff, or this is what we've been able to achieve with additional staff, and this is why we need to continue to employ this additional staff. And it's our job as a building committee to say, these are the reasons why we need a new fire station. And it is that education process. We spend, you know, what, how many thousands or tens of thousands of dollars extra per vehicle, per engine, to customize it, because right now it needs to fit in the space that's smaller than what a conventional engine fits in currently. So that's a fact right there that you can present to the voters and say, in the future, we won't have to, you know, spend $20,000 extra per engine because it will fit in this state. The conventional engine will fit in this space without additional cost for customizing. There's all those little pieces that have to be brought together, like we did in the previous committee in 2019. Those are all the pros that we looked at and said, okay, these are all the reasons why Park Street makes sense.
I think part of what Tim was saying is it's hard to have the public support when you can't even get them to come to the meeting or be part of the committee to fill out the committee. It's
You hope to find support everywhere.
right.
You want the taxpayers to be supported, you want the firefighters to be supportive, you want the committee to have a robust representation
Right.
that's supportive. Having somebody with credibility, you know, when we were talking with Alan, right?
Yeah.
Bringing him on board really, for me, provided a whole level of comfort that, you know, we would be able to better add that credibility, having brought a professional on board, and that we're not just doing this, you know, from the hip. So yes, well, that's important.
Well, how did the police building committee do it without an Alan Clark?
I can only speak from my opinion, but I think they had, on the committee, they had a broad representation of those people, townspeople who you recognize and know from the meetings, vocal people, and they, in my opinion, did a pretty good job of bringing forth the information and educating as you just mentioned, educating the population, and that the town of Tilton was, I think, in that case, a little more receptive of spending money than we have been seen in the past with fire district. Because there's certainly a lot of people who thought the price was too high.
At the town meeting, it was overwhelming support.
Right.
It was like 85, I think you were there.
Yeah.
It was like 85% in favor, 82% in favor of
Yeah.
building it.
It's a lot of information, it's a lot of everything you're saying, the credibility of your product, credibility of have the people representing it. A lot of information, we're going through this with other district entities right now, it's public information, get it out there, selectmen meetings, other meetings, just flyers, you gotta do all that, but you have to have a product a good product that you can put out there.
Right.
And right now, we're trying to develop what that product is the big focus of the moment, to figure out what it is, as we still talk about it, it's coming, to get people aware and know it's coming, but really focusing on what is the product that's gonna be coming.
And my point in asking that question was exactly what you said. We need more committee members, we need committee members who are recognized in the community, that will help lend credence to the final product. I don't think that at this stage that we need an Alan Clark to get there. Maybe going forward, but we have very reputable contractors that are all waiting to find out if they're going to be participating. And there isn't a single one in here that people haven't heard of.
Right.
And they put together, they would do what Alan Cox said he was. They're going to put together a plan based upon this committee's recommendations of something to build, and they're gonna price it. And is it $400 a foot? I don't know. I have no idea.
I think, we figured out the cost per foot of the police station last night, given generally that it costs $5 million and that it was 12,000 square feet, worked out to $416 per square foot.
416 or 616?
416.
I thought you had 616 for something.
No, it's 416.
All right.
So, given what I hear about cost for commercial construction nowadays, that seems to be
It depends on what you go with, but
yeah.
there's so many different kinds of commercial buildings. And, there's elements in the police station that wouldn't need to be included in a fire station, and there's elements in a fire station that wouldn't be in a police station.
Yeah, we're not gonna have cells or secure areas in that manner.
Yeah.
I mean, the secure areas we have would be like medical supply and stuff like that.
Right.
That would be, key fob type of thing that's gonna, keep the wrong people out and let the right people in.
Right.
It's not.
There won't be video surveillance, and it doesn't have to be a masonry building. You go from masonry to wood or steel frame. That's the expense dramatically. But that's what these guys can do for us. And my opinion is that we continue on with the charge that we have until the commissioners tell us otherwise, and we get active in recruiting other committee members.
Is it known whether or not any of the people that we've done a presentation on to date, whether or not they have built a fire station that is in the neighborhood of whatever it was, 12,000 square feet or not?
I guess you'd have to look through the presentations. I would imagine that, I know BPS has built fire stations. I know Hunter built a life safety building in Sutton, I think it was. That was
So,
police and fire. There was a metal building.
where I'm going with that question is, if they've done it, I mean, yeah, it's great to say, yeah, look what we got, look what we did, look what we designed. built one that we can use, I mean, it doesn't have to be unique to us. I think that way too much emphasis is put on this thing is built for us, for our specific needs, just like we do with our fire trucks.
Well, Fulcrum,
We pick the best of the best of the best, and the price is whatever it is. Well, that ain't gonna work at the fire station. You get a building you can work out of, and you do what it does what you need it to do. If something they built will fit on our lot with minimal reconfiguration as direction or whatever, how it actually sits on the land, would that not remove a bunch of questions and cost as well? And then I'm gonna make what may be a bit of a stretch as far as analogy goes. But I can tell you that when I used to build cookie cutter houses, they came a lot cheaper than when someone said, yeah, but then do this.
right.
You know what I mean? I've done this, I built that house there, I know I can turn it on that lawn and put the doors on the other side, we're good to go.
Yeah.
And granted, that's not what we're talking about, but I think, I just want to caution us, we don't overthink.
No, you're-
You could have your head on straight, you know what you're talking about, and what your thought process is. But don't overthink it.
You're right. I mean, anytime you customize something, the cost goes up exponentially. So if you take a square box, that's a lot cheaper to build than it is one with corners.
Corners cost money.
Yeah. And if you look at, I'm looking through Fulcrum's presentation. They have a photograph of the Wells main fire station on the front, because they built that. Now, I don't know how big it is. And their architect of choice being LaValle Brensinger, which is a very well-known firm in the state of New Hampshire. The guy that they're saying would be the project architect, did public safety, police department, fire department for Exeter, a new central station for the city of Quincy, new combined police and fire department facility for the town of Wells, was part of the West Side Fire Station feasibility study for the city of Keene, part of the master plan fire department for the city of Lebanon. It's all town of Wolfboro, town of Kennebuck, city of Dover, police headquarters, parking garage.
So they have a chance.
Yeah. I was trying to, I know how to build a fire station in Manchester when I was employed by them. It wasn't 14,000 square feet. It was because it was only 3 apparatus bays. It was a substation on East Industrial Park Drive.
That was more than 6,000, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Substations, most of the ones I've come across is 6,000 to 7,000. That's newer ones, not older ones that don't have the appropriate spaces that are required today.
Yeah. Oh,
These folks list Kingston, Warner, Canterbury, Meredith, Merrimack.
that's Bowen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Canterbury, does it say how big Canterbury is?
Oh, no, it does, 20,000 square feet.
And Hunter's using Warren Street, and I'm looking through the back of their presentation, and Warren Street is, as we know, they did the plans for the Mandeville Road one, but they got Litchfield, City of Laconia, Hillsborough Fire Department, Washington Public Safety Complex, Peterborough, Webster. Oh, that was the one that wasn't Sutton, it was Webster that they built when I was employed.
These folks have Warner at 11,000 square feet. New fire station, EMS training.
Yeah, it has no dorm spaces and anything like. It's got a kitchen, small kitchen, but it's not. It's a call by volunteer, mostly volunteer, I think one is volunteer.
No, the paid call, but.
I'm sure one of them could come up with something fairly close to a 10,000 square foot addition to Park Street. That isn't unique. It's really what we need to do is we need to add the 10,000 square foot rectangular box. Somebody could tell us whether it would be cheaper cheaper and more user-friendly to make Park Street, the current Park Street station, into admin and bunk rooms, and then build 2 new apparatus bays? Or is it cheaper, more feasible to have an apparatus bay, admin, and bunk space in the middle?
Well, I think as Kevin said, anything that's going to require you to update the whole existing building is probably something going to add a lot of cost. So if you're going to put admin and bunk space in there, does that meet the criteria for major renovations requiring sprinkler systems, new HVAC systems?
What they call in the code is any substantial change. I think that would be considered substantial.
You think you're gonna find if you even touch the existing building, commercial tear down?
Sorry, what was that, Kevin?
You'll
So I think you're gonna find if you even touch, if you even touch the existing building at Park Street, you might as well level it to start over. If you start getting everything that's wrong with that building and you want it corrected to bring it to today's standards, you might as well bulldoze the goddamn thing and start over. It's not feasible. I mean, and I am not in any way, shape, form, or manner in favor of trying to build it down. My thing from the beginning is that leave it alone. It's there, it's fine, it functions. Let's put something beside it that we can work out of. And let Park Street Station, as it exists today, continue to exist, because you don't have to touch it. It's just separated. That is not even there. Build what we need to replace Center Street beside it. Leave it alone. It'll be there when the time comes that you have to do something to it. But to do it now, I'm telling you, you might as well just tear the thing down. That's not my thing at all.
If you're thinking long term, you know, 20, 30 years out, putting a separate building next to Park Street and then waiting to do something with Park Street, whatever out, it's probably going to cost you more to do it then than it is to do it now. Just the way things are, it just keeps escalating.
Oh, the longer you wait, the more expensive.
Yeah.
If it's 6 months, or if it's 6 years, or 20.
I mean, I have an adage, and it might be different for me than it is to you, and my adage is, if we're not going to do it right, let's not do it at all. But what I think is right and what you think is right might be two different things.
Exactly. Right by who's, I mean, what's right to me is what more important, well, I don't want to say more important, but we've shown, I mean, I can remember back, I think, the first time anybody breathed the words addition to Pratt Street, I think it was $350,000. And it was a bigger defeat than the $7 million project. And it's all about the times, who you can get to sign on that I don't know.
Yeah, that was a while back.
I'm frustrated because the more we talk about this, the more certain sections or more certain factions of the community try to complicate the hell out of it, and it's really not that complicated. You can't buy a Corvette when all the money you have says you're buying a Volkswagen. I want that damn Corvette.
Nowadays. Have you
And I can
priced
go
out a
back.
Volkswagen, Kevin?
You know, I actually, I say that I saw a Volkswagen, oh my God, a 1966 Volkswagen Beetle sold at auction for $66,000. Couldn't believe it. I've been sitting there watching auctions. But anyway, so you have to live within your means. I guess that's really what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants all they can get, but nobody wants to pay for it. You need to live within our means, and a multi-million-dollar project is not living within our means. We have all this competition for unlimited tax dollars. I mean,
Yeah, I think
we
people
come
will
up
pick and
with
choose what
the
they
town
want.
of Tilton got belted for $5 million. What was that last year, the year before? A bond. The school was looking at a couple of bonds for, I don't know, 18 million for 15 years. You know, there is an end. There really is. There has to. And I think the better job we've shown, we're trying to get something done. And believe it or not, people, we are very cognizant of people's ability to pay. And if you lose that, you're gonna lose the project. And I've said to them again, I think this can go, because if I didn't really think that, I wouldn't be here saying what I'm saying, doing what I'm doing, talk to people I talk to. Because I think you all remember when I'm a no guy for any kind of big money thing. But show the value, show the people we have you in mind. Not only that we understand we need something, but we need something people will support.
That's the truth. No support, no nothing.
That's right.
So I'll say it again, our charge hasn't changed. We need to continue on with it. That being said, have you guys had a chance to read through the presentation, presentations?
Have not. I paused on that while we were talking with this other options and stuff
Okay.
to figure out what it is. I think we gotta consider getting back on track with that. But I think that there was a pause because of the REI option into there, that trying to figure out where we're at in the process and such. I think getting back on track. I think right now one of the biggest pushes I would suggest is membership. Is the biggest pushes. Get people willing and wanting to get on here to make a difference. And I think that's what's really hurting us right now. I think that's the first step, is get this filled out.
Well, we have two, in my mind, we have two priorities. One is membership, and the other is moving forward with the process of interviewing our select list of contractors.
I think we can do those two things in tandem.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. But I do echo what John, I believe it was John said, that I haven't looked through the books because I guess, I almost hate to admit it, but I think I hung my hat on Mr. Allen. And now that he's not there, I guess we better get back to what we were doing.
Okay, so our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight. That would be the 23rd. I would ask that we all look through these proposals and come prepared to discuss them at that meeting and decide how we want to move forward with the interview process, who we want to interview. And it maybe all of them.
Yep.
And we need to start working on a list of questions so that each interview is conducted.
Standardized.
Right. Thank you,
I
John.
think we should also continue to work on that list of spaces.
Yep.
You know, labeling them all out correctly, getting an understanding of how many square foot these rooms need to be. So when we get asked those questions, well, how big is this building going to be? We go, we need this many apparatus bays, we need this many bunk rooms, this many office spaces. So I think we should continue to work on that aspect.
And we have that document that the chief put together.
Yeah, and we started making a list of rooms.
Right. And then we also have what Alan provided us with.
Thought process, yes.
So those are two good resources
Some samples.
to base it.
And, again, and I think Kevin is completely accurate, if we don't touch the current building and we continue to use it for storage for the lesser frequently used equipment, how many bays does the new building need to have? Is it 2 ambulances and 2 engines? Is it 2 ambulances, 2 engines, and something else?
Well, Kevin said it, we need to replace what we have at Center Street. Because right now, between Park Street and Center Street, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, we're housing all of our apparatus.
Yes.
So if we're not going to touch the garage at Park Street, we just need to replace what we have at Center Street.
So is that 2 bays? Is that 3 bays? Is
It's
that,
Well,
two
well, it's
apparatus
kind of
bays.
2.5 days.
or do we make the bays deep enough that you can have both ambulances in the new building?
Right.
Instead of having one in the new building, one in the old?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, should be discussed. Because, replacing what we have at Center Street may be replacing with some modifications.
Right. And that comes into the chief's input and firefighters' input. Say, okay, how often does the ladder go out? Well, not very often, so we'll put that in Park Street. We know what's the first apparatus up? Ambulance and an engine. Maybe both of those, like you just said, those 4 pieces go in the new building. Everything else can go in
the old.
Park Street. And we'll get there as we're going along, but we don't need those decisions made before we look at who we want to interview.
But it'll come quick, as Kevin says. They'll start asking us those questions.
Yep.
Yes.
Will an 8,000 square foot building do it, or does it need to be 10?
And we had already pretty much determined that it needed to be 10, because what is Center Street now?
I can't forget off the top
It's
of my
like
head.
40 by 80, isn't it?
It's, no, it's 48 by 48 upstairs.
Oh, Center Street, I'm sorry, I was thinking Park Street when I was thinking,
Downstairs is 48 by
yeah, Elton House.
60 something.
It's 10,000 square feet.
Well, that's all, that's 6.
Well, 48 by 48, call it 50 by 50, it's 2,500.
2,500?
And then 50 by 60, is that what you said?
It's a little more than 60, it's like 64 or something.
So it's another 30.
Oh,
About 30,000.
3,500, so-
Yeah, because at one point I had
6,700.
7,600 that we come up with for space, before we put in like hallways. They're overrated.
Yeah, always are overrated. And walls for dorm rooms, they're over. Hang curtains. They're a joke. So, no, that's an important part of where we will be at once we make our decision on the recommendation to the commissioners on who we should hire.
There's a fire station design conference coming up, and I thought, I've been to it twice, very good conference, you get a lot of great ideas, and it's full, chock-a-full of people who build public safety buildings, fire stations, police stations, stuff like that. And I thought it might be a good idea if some of the community members went to this conference to soak it all up and get it, absorb what the current trends are in fire stations, fire station designs, why you do this or why you don't do that. Because that's what these people do.
Do you have information about it?
There's a website, I mean, I just printed out the email that I got. I can forward you the email, and that way all the links will work if you like.
That'd be great, then we can send it out to everybody on the committee.
And if you feel like it's a worthy venture, we can bring it back to the commissioners to see if they'll fund it.
Couple of just quick questions, obviously, is what is the conference cost?
I didn't even look.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had that information, because obviously that's,
Well, it's in Illinois, so it'll require a plane trip.
Yeah, it's,
When is it? Is it, how far into our process is it?
It's May 24th to the 26th.
early on.
It's, the airport is, the hotel that it's in is right here, and the airport is right here. I didn't even have to, when I went the last one, I didn't even have to take a Uber or anything, like, there was a shuttle from the hotel, that's on a shuttle to it. And
This says group rates available, save $100 per person for 3 to 5 attendees, $125 per person for 5+ attendees, but it doesn't
Right.
have the,
Yeah, so
What the X minus,
there's gonna be a room rate, and there'll be a conference rate. I honestly didn't have time to look it up today, I just printed it up and I put it. And I talked to you about it the other day, because I knew it was coming up.
and again, to the credibility factor, this might be an opportunity for some folks to gain that credibility. Yeah, if you could forward that, Chief. Or just send, you want to send it to everybody in the,
Maybe I can do it from my phone, from my group, and see how good I got this.
it's just trying to figure out the cost and the pros and cons of it.
yeah.
So,
So, 2 weeks from tonight, our task is to have reviewed the proposals and decide who we want to interview and hopefully start working on the standardization of interview questions.
okay. So it's deciding on who for the 23rd is the major objective, is who,
Yes.
and then probably at the 23rd and post is standardizing and getting the process all refined.
Yes, and we'll also have to come up with some kind of a schedule
Yep.
because
Okay.
we all work.
I don't have the building committee's email on my thing. Do you guys know what the email to the building committee is?
I think Kathy just set up as a group
Oh, it's probably that.
so that has everybody's individual email on it.
Yeah,
There is a fire station building committee,
that might be.
because Beth sent the minutes to that group.
Right, but I think it's just a group with everybody's individual
That's,
email.
that's probably in our Outlook at the fire station.
She might build it right.
I'll do it tomorrow in
Yeah,
the
that's fine.
office, because like.
I brought that up to bring your other business, because he interviews at that. Probably check if there's any other business when they want.
Yeah. There was something else.
Oh, sorry.
Mine, it came in and went out. Any other business that we need to bring before the committee? Tim? Chief, anything? Kevin, anything?
Stop.
Oh, I'm good.
I'm good
John?
now.
Okay. Good. And it being 6:17, the meeting to a close. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.